Athena is finally upon us here in the arena. Here's my first impressions on what she's like, how she is to play, and why she's really hard to evaluate this early in the public test server. Let's have a look. Straight out of the gate, let's go ahead and start with her stats. Athena is technically a light champion, starting with 125 health, which degrades down to 100. This is typical of all light champions, and 0 out of a maximum of 50 armor. She's able to reach quite high speeds with great acceleration, just like all light champions can, but otherwise has normal VQ3 movement. VQ3, of course, standing for Vanilla Quake 3. This is your standard strafe jumping, circle jumping, and all of those sorts of things. She is just the basic bread and butter. She has two special movement mechanics. One is a passive ability, which you will see sporadically throughout our gameplay today. There actually is a section where I do practice it for a good 30 seconds just to kind of play with it. But basically, this is called, I guess, actually, I don't remember the proper name, but it is essentially a stair jump. So if you start strafe jumping up a set of stairs, or really up any incline, and you jump at a very specific point at the top of that incline, you will get a massive boost into the air. This also works off of jump pads. So if you go up a jump pad and you're holding the spacebar down at the very top lip, you will fly very fast over that lip. Whereas with most other champions when holding spacebar, you would grab the ledge and kind of plant there. So Athena works somewhat opposite to what you may be used to, but then again, Nyx and Doomslayer also have mechanics where you don't want to hold the spacebar going up those lifts. You want to hold crouch instead. So, of course, Athena functions the same way. If you want to go up a lift and just grab the ledge and stay there, hold crouch, and you will do so, just like you can with any champion. But if you want to go flying over the ledge and go really high up, hold spacebar instead, or whatever your jump key may be, and you will, of course, go flying. Now, your other special movement mechanic with Athena is going to be your grappling hook. Of course, you've seen me use this many times already in this gameplay. This has a couple of main modes that I find myself using most so far in my couple of matches versus bots. I've unfortunately not played against players yet, but we'll get there in due time. So, the grappling hook. Press your ability button once. You'll fire it off. It's a very, very fast projectile. Once it collides with a wall, you will start pulling yourself in a straight line towards that wall, accelerating very rapidly over time to a maximum of... Actually, I'm not entirely sure. I want to say it's somewhere in the 800s, but you may actually be able to break that. So, it's a very simple ability. It's not like Titanfall, where you have actual real-deal physics going alongside of this grappling hook, where you start swinging around and you can actually catapult yourself. This is much simpler. Not to say that it's worse, but it is much simpler. All you do, pick a point, press your button, and you will start moving towards that point. This is going to be actually a boon in a game like Quake Champions, because if you're in a close-range fight and you're using a low fire rate weapon like a shotgun or rocket launcher, one thing that I've been experimenting with, which I think is going to be very powerful in 1v1 fights, is you take a shot, immediately swing your mouse to the left or right, grapple into a wall, and then you can switch back to your target and continue shooting. This is going to be a very rapid change of direction and speed, which your opponent may or may not be able to deal with. Now, in due time, once people become used to fighting against this champion and they learn that technique, it may be something that you don't rely on very much because there is quite a big telegraph to it. So this is something that you can experiment with and try for yourself and see if it ends up working out for you in the long run. But against high-level players, my initial thought might actually be that it's a sometimes food. You can try it sometimes. Maybe it'll be useful, but more likely it won't. But it's still worth playing with, because if you know you're not playing against the top-tier players, which, trust me, a lot of the time you are not, it is one of those techniques that you can do to style on people and just to trip them up, right? You're going to alter the way that they're looking at the game, the way they're looking at the character, and it's going to make them much worse at killing you overall. Other parts of this grapple, which I think are important, are the facts that it does deal damage. On a direct hit with an opponent, it will deal 25 damage, and if you strike an opponent while you are in the grappling animation, you will deal 50 damage to them. So the grapple's damage is hooked up into 2 separate parts. I'm a big fan of this because the grapple does end up being just a spammable damage ability in some fights. So making it an ability that you have to aim well and you don't get all the damage from right away, and you actually have to put yourself very far out of position to get the full damage from, means that it's a much more balanced active ability in the sense that while yes it does damage, it is not a delete button. At least it does not seem to be thus far. Maybe in the future we'll find out that it kind of is, and it's really, really annoying, but first impressions versus bots, that doesn't quite seem to be the case. And here you're seeing me testing out that little stair jump we mentioned earlier, just a couple little jumps here. You see sometimes I go flying up the top of those steps. As long as you space yourself correctly, it is a thing that can happen on regular stairs, but the place you're going to see it the most is going up these gravity lifts. So anyways, guys, I think that pretty much covers the basics of this character, all of her abilities, and what you're generally going to be doing with her. She is a light champion. She's very fast. She's very fragile. So you're going to want to really do your best to focus on picking your battles and using your speed, using your mobility to your advantage. Because if you can't use that mobility, then you have nothing as this champion, and there is really no point in you having picked her. And then again, even if you're not necessarily using the grappling hook and your mobility in fights, the big thing with her is that she can move around the map more freely and in a lot of cases more quickly than most any other champion in the game. So you need to make sure you're using your mobility to your advantage to always have control of the map. You're going to always have control of items. You're going to be able to move from point A to point B in very interesting ways that other champions cannot do. And, well, it's just good. Like, the champion is going to be good. She's going to be solid just by virtue of how her ability works and the things that it lets her do, the ways that it lets her break the game. So she's never going to be bad, right? She's always going to be a champion who is at least a niche pick in some situations because that grapple gives you so much mobility and control. A couple other little bullet points I'm just rereading on my notes here before we sign off. There is a second mode to the grapple where if you press grapple once, you grapple into a wall, then you press and hold the button a second time. What's supposed to happen, and this is key, this is supposed to happen and does not work correctly in the PTS right now, is that you're supposed to lock the length of the grapple and actually swing from, you know, basically you're able to swing around corners and you're able to get some momentum in that way. And I have noticed that when using that technique, my speed and UPS went well over the thousands in some cases. However, I was not actually moving that quickly, so I don't know if there's an intention that you can move that fast, but the game is just not registering it, or if something else is at play. But whatever the case may be, there is something in that vein that is going on. Other thing I wanted to mention, your grapple, 3 charges, 15 seconds per charge, so make sure that you are getting your hourglasses. 3 hourglasses will give you 1 charge back, and that's really, really important. Anyways, guys, that's all my bullet points. That's just the first base impressions. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very, very soon with more PTS. Take care, guys.